What's shaking, everybody? Welcome to I don't even know what day it is. Is it Wednesday? It's Wednesday. It's a Wednesday edition of House Divided. I should know better. Thursdays are war room days, and I'm not quite working on that. I'm Jeff Ketchum. That's Chad Hastings. This is Orange Bloods Live. Thanks for joining us on this Wednesday. Hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. And by all means, get notifications. You never know when breaking news might pop out. We're waiting on guys in the portal to make decisions, guys that took visits this past weekend, going into Monday, going into this weekend. Just get those notifications. Don't make us tell you a second thousandth time because it's been a minute. Now, Chad, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Two pieces of good news before we get started. Ketch, I know you will not care about this as a Cowboys fan, but you know I do care about this stuff. You would have cared at kickoff. For those that heard that the Cowboys are asking their fans to do a whiteout, that is true. But these guys will not wear white helmets. I have double checked. They are going to look like the freaking Dallas Cowboys when they play the freaking Green Bay Packers. The fans are being asked to go white out. The Cowboys themselves will not wear the white hat. So that's great news to just start the show with, I think, on that level.
That's not great news.
Of course, that's great news.
We're the goddamn Dallas Cowboys. We don't need to do gimmicks. We're not Penn State University.
No, I understand.
We need to show up in our random assortment of colors like we do every single week. You know what we need? We need the Cowboys to show up and play like a number 2 seed.
Now, that's true. That's true. I'm just telling you, and I agree with you. I don't think there needs to be any kitschiness, but as soon as I saw white out, I thought, holy hell, they're going to wear those helmets. If they wear those helmets, I'm losing my mind.
Can we be America's team? As we begin the show today, you're putting me in a bad mood talking about this Cowboy stuff.
I didn't mean to be bad mood. I was trying to go good mood.
I hadn't heard about this whiteout.
Okay, well then, in that regard, I might be giving you a little bad news there.
When have we ever done that?
I don't recall it ever happening. They put out a picture of white shirts all around the stadium. They put it up on the Jumbotron, Catch. It says white out, that the Cowboys are encouraging the white out.
Let me tell you what, there's going to be like 30,000 Packer fans at the stadium. And going white out just means that we're going to notice how many damn Packer fans are in the stadium. I'm just saying.
No, you're absolutely right. And you have now dug out the extra bad news of that story that I had not thought of yet. You're right. So let me move on to another quick piece of good news. And that is Max Asmus did it again. And how about Dylan Dessou last night? 33-6. For Dessou, plus some blocks and steals. Texas gets a by that much kind of win, but everything's big in the road. On the road in the Big 12, even if it's a new Big 12 team. Max Asmus with another big shot last night. So some good news for Texas basketball fans on a Tuesday night.
You're telling me I was writing the Texas basketball game report on Orange Bloods, and no, it was a close game. So, you know, that's much of what college basketball is. It's like the NBA. Let's just fast forward to the final 2 minutes. If you hadn't watched a Texas basketball game all year, then you probably didn't watch last night because I think it was an ESPN Plus game. So if you weren't trying to find it, you might not have found it. But if you were watching this team for the first time all year, you'd go, oh, look, Dylan Dessou. That was what he was doing in the NCAA basketball tournament. And this career high 33 points. Like, why has the basketball team been struggling? That dude is awesome because that was like the first time this season he's been awesome. He mentioned it in the post-game interviews, Chad, that he'd been on a minutes restriction.
That was his first start, right?
I think so.
Technically, yeah.
And, you know, he'd been limited to like 21, 22 minutes. Last night he played 34. He scores 33. He had team-high points, team-high rebounds, team-high blocks, team-high steals. He did it all last night. It may have saved the Texas basketball season because they need to start – that's only their second win over a top 100 team all season long. It's only their fourth over a top 200 team. So, like, they got to start accumulating – some good wins last night on the road against Cincinnati. By far their best win of the season so far. That was a top 30 Ken Palm rankings team. They were kind of projected to be a 10 seed in the most recent ESPN bracketology. So solid win for Texas. And yeah, shout out to the Texas basketball team. Big win, big late shot. That was a tough shot. And yeah, Texas basketball with some good vibes on a Wednesday. I wonder if the good vibes are continuing in the portal as, you know, I think Texas fans. Oh, hold on.
Yes.
Kyle Henderson in 12 minutes.
Yes.
But before we do that, Blake, hit us with our theme song.
Uh-oh.
Round 1. Fight! Get over here! Finish him!
Never goes away.
Better. I need it. You know, it's like we're getting ready to talk portal, and we don't have the.
One of the chatters said the "get over here" is their favorite part. It's that "get over here, get onto our team."
It's the laugh for me, Chad.
Yes, the laugh is fantastic as well. All right, so in terms of portal stuff, and we do have Kyle Peterson coming up from Bama football on YouTube. We're going to get an official pronunciation on Kendrick Black Shire. Kendrick Blackshire. We'll find out. Or maybe it's just KB. That's coming up at 12:20. Just exactly what level of linebacker does he think is visiting Texas this weekend? How excited would he tell Texas fans to be? We'll get into all that. Speaking of that position, Catch, I know you want to get into linebackers a little bit today and kind of maybe the thing that's not being discussed about Texas football.
Well, it really hasn't been. I haven't had many linebacker conversations over the course of like the last 6 months, right? It's been, you've got Jalen Ford, who I think has been kind of the whoopee blanket for the Texas football team for a couple of years now, right? Since the big season a year ago, he was Mr. Dependable this season. Wasn't quite as spectacular, didn't have all of the interceptions, but Mr. Dependable at linebacker. And then you had David Benda playing that weak side linebacker. And then you had Anthony Hill filling in. And then about mid-season, Maurice Blackwell started playing more football, and Anthony Hill started to take some of David Benda's, snaps away from him. But one of the things that the Black Shire, and look, full disclosure, there might be something weird with the Black Shire recruitment. There's some thought. Now, look, he told us specifically, Kendrick Black Shire told us that he's visiting Texas.
Mm-hmm.
But he hasn't confirmed the date yet. And now it looks like he's going to go visit Ole Miss.
And by that you mean he hasn't confirmed that date with Texas?
With us.
Or with you, or with Orange Bloods?
Correct.
Okay, gotcha.
So, he also said that he's going to go visit Ole Miss, and his old DC, Pete Golden, is the defensive coordinator at Ole Miss now.
Oh, yeah.
But he also didn't say a specific date there. It feels like he's just saying out loud places that he's going to go visit. We had a couple of people like, hey, just FYI, that may or may not happen. So, I don't want us all going completely all in on Kendrick Black Shire today. Still waiting to kind of see how that goes, a little more information, if there's any more clarity. But the conversation of him yesterday on Orange Bloods got us talking about the linebacker position. And if you were going to bring in Kendrick Black Shire, why would you do it? Where would you do it? Where would he play? Unlike a lot of the other guys that Texas, and I say a lot of the other guys, right? We're talking about three so far. You've got Matthew Golden, you've got Trey Moore, you've got Andrew Makuba. The sense is like every single one of those guys is a starting level player that's elevating the team. But Blackshire hasn't been a starter at Alabama. And he's going into year 4 next year. Hasn't been a starter. Now, there's no shame in that, right? Alabama's got good football players. But if you're recruiting him to Texas, what's the role? And from a skill set standpoint, it's interesting. And I had some of this conversation on Orange Bloods yesterday. He's been a pure inside, old school, downhill, inside linebacker at Alabama. At Texas, the Mike linebacker, if you think about Jalen Ford, they asked that guy to do a lot of things. It's not your traditional like Mike Singletary play in the box linebacker. There's a lot of pass coverage. They would have Ford do a little bit of everything during the course of a game. And when you would look at Black Shire, he's an in the box guy. He does it when he did play for Alabama, like 100 snaps last year. It was mostly in the box, like 2 snaps in coverage. They weren't bringing him up as a defensive lineman off the edge. He is kind of what he is. Well, isn't that a little bit of what David Benda is? The kind of physical linebacker who's a bit of a thumper. You kind of cringe when he's in coverage.
Right.
There were games last year where you would see Benda matched up and you almost couldn't be mad at Benda. It was like, ooh, well, if they're going to ask him to do that, then, giving up 30 yards on a crossing route from the slot, like that could be a problem. But then Anthony Hill started taking those snaps. But the question is, Jalen Ford is gone. Do you move Anthony Hill to Mike linebacker and ask him to be Jalen Ford? And is that the best way to get the best out of Anthony Hill, who I am still shocked wasn't used as a more aggressive coming after Michael Penix's kind of weapon in the bowl game?
Yep.
You've got Benda back, and part of this conversation also stems last night. David Benda does what we've been reporting over at orangebloods.com for a couple of weeks. He was expected to return. He will be one of a couple of super seniors. Both he and Alfred Collins will use their COVID year, and they'll come back and be super seniors next year. But if Benda's back, and Benda is a starting level linebacker, and you move maybe Anthony Hill to Mike, like what would you do with Black Shire? I mean, Maurice Blackwell's kind of a situational guy anyway. He's more of a passing downs guy. Maybe you can play him a little bit more. But the conversation got to be about all of the freshmen. And for me, if you were to bring in a guy like Black Shire, to me, that's a signal that maybe you're not confident that one or more of your really young linebackers who didn't play this year, the Leona Lafals, the Darian Gallettes, the Samaje Burrells, like these guys that mostly redshirted, didn't play in a lot of games. Are they ready to take on a starting role? And if you bring in a guy like Black Shire, who's not an obvious starter, maybe he could be. Maybe he upgrades David Benda, or maybe he can play some Mike. Maybe they'll tweak what they ask of their linebackers. We got a brand new linebackers coach in Austin. Maybe he wants to do something a little different. We'll see. But the numbers for the Longhorns, they're not great. You don't have a true middle linebacker currently on the roster that you can say there's a game tomorrow, he's our starting middle linebacker. And then you wonder with Hill, what are they going to do with him? Do you just move him to Mike because you don't have any other options? And again, is that the best way to get the most out of him? Hill replace Benda, but if you move Hill to Mike, then Benda probably starts, and he's okay. But, we've been talking about the secondary for the last week and about how critical Texas is stressing, got to get better. They're telling Ryan Watts, Jaron Thompson, Keaton Crawford, guys, we got to get better, and that just probably doesn't mean you. I don't know. There's a linebacker conversation to have where, I don't quite know who the obvious starters are going into next season. I don't know how many guys they can truly depend on, and I'm not quite sure which freshmen who are going to be redshirt freshmen or sophomores. I'm not quite sure who's ready to play or not. And that feels like a position that's a lot more uncertain than a lot of the conversation about the 2024 team has probably indicated. There's been the receivers, there's been the DBs, there's been a lot of, even with Sanders gone, what does it mean at the tight end position? I don't feel like there's been a lot of linebacker conversation, and I think maybe we should start to have some.
Excuse me. I think it's perfectly fair. We'll continue to do that. If you want to jump in the Specs chat, feel free. Up over 230 folks already in the Specs chat. We've got Kyle Henderson coming up from Bama Football on YouTube. Again, we'll really get into the Kendrick Black Shire conversation. Black Shire, we'll find that out. But also, more importantly, how could he fit in to what Texas wants to do? Also, shout out to a lot of our great sponsors. Of course, Specs on the chat. They've got it all set up for you. SpecsOnline.com. You can get the Specs app, get stuff delivered like Deep Eddy Vodka. You know I love my Deep Eddy Vodka, and that Deep Eddy Vodka tasting room is waiting for you on the weekends. In fact, and by the way, yeah, they're open during the day too. We showed you that great night shot. There's a good day shot for you of the tasting room. Thursdays and Fridays, 11 to 7. Saturday, 11 to 5. Sunday, 12 to 5. Go hang out with friends, family. They're all about having a great time. Obviously, you do it responsibly, but go have some of those great cocktails, or maybe do a flight of the vodka and taste those different flavors. There are 8 different flavors of Deep Eddy vodka, and they're all fantastic. There's your QR code. Scan it. Find out more. Deep Eddy Vodka Tasting Room. They're right out there in Dripping Springs on East Highway 290 out in the beautiful Texas Hill Country.
Chad, can I tell you what I was told?
Sure.
I once, by a very great man, was told it's okay to morning drink and day drink under a couple of different circumstances.
Okay.
Number one, you're not alone.
I like
So
that's good.
if it's 8 o'clock in the morning and you're out fishing,
Yeah.
and you're drinking by yourself, you need a friend. One person on the boat drinking a beer, everything's okay.
Fair enough.
The other thing is you either go to like a tasting room or a plant. You know, you go someplace where they're making
a
and
distillery,
distributing, and then it's like perfectly okay.
That's it. That makes it feel official. That's what's great. Yes.
It's very Laverne and Shirley-esque, right? I mean, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. That's all I'm saying. So either find a person to go with you someplace.
Yep.
Or go to the place that makes it and everything's official.
And
tasting room, that kind of thing.
And if you can combine them, it's always good, Catch, because I've been to the Deep Eddy Vodka tasting room multiple times. Never been alone. Always with a group. It's always good.
There you go.
Yeah. Always a way to do it.
If you ever see somebody at one of those places by themselves, hey, come over there and let them know. You know what? I'm with you. Don't feel bad.
Yeah, there it is. All right, so we ready to get educated? We ready to find out?
Well, it's interesting. We wanted to talk to Kyle Henderson this week before the Kendrick Black Shire thing happened. He's going to make sure that we understand how to pronounce the last name correctly. And who knows? We may never need to actually know it. Like, we'll know it now, and he'll probably go play at Ole Miss for Pete Golding. But yeah, but we wanted to talk to Kyle Henderson, kind of close out the college football season. We had him on so much during the year, not just when Texas played Alabama. So yeah, let's bring him in. The one, the only, the myth, the legend, Kyle Henderson.
What's up? What's up? I
Kyle?
appreciate the round of applause. I appreciate being here. Thanks, man. I was listening to you guys opening about sipping on some cold ones, and I'm all here for it. So let's dive in. It's properly pronounced Kendrick Black Shire.
Okay.
It is the more formal pronunciation, Black Shire. Okay.
See, the thing, Kyle, is we're in our heads a little bit. There are towns in Texas, like there's a town called Lancaster. At least that's how it's spelled, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're familiar. There are football prospects coming out all the time. Yeah. Except the locals call it, Chad.
They call it Lancaster. Because it's Texas. You got to go with the Texas pronunciation sometimes.
So we were a little confused as to, like, we just got in our own heads. Black Shire seemed obvious, except maybe he's from Duncanville and they call it Blackshire. And we're doing
No, I got it. Yeah.
Tell us about Black Shire.
All right. So Kendrick Black Shire, I think so. Years ago, when there was kind of this mini exodus from Alabama to Texas, right? When Steve Sarkisian took a couple key components and a couple guys transferred along with him, you guys asked me about, I think it was Ben Davis. And I told you guys, look, I probably a great kid, but I don't think he's ever going to see the field. I felt really good about Keelan Robinson as well. But Kendrick Black Shire, I think it is. If he is to transfer to Texas, I think it would be a really big pickup for the Longhorns. Here's why. I think he's an athletic linebacker. He's very physical. There's a lot of people that are always going to say when a player hits the transfer portal, we didn't need him anyways. Well, that may be the case here at Alabama because you have Deontay Lawson and Jahad Campbell. Those two guys are going to go into the NFL. Is Kendrick Black Shire NFL linebacker? I don't know. Maybe in the future, things do change. But I think he could be an impact player. I'm not saying a day one starter, but I think getting him into the rotation within the two deep is absolutely reasonable for somebody like Kendrick Black Shire. Everybody probably remembers Kendrick Black Shire from the high school photos when he was a recruit. I mean, the guy looked literally like he was going to the NFL and was just going to skip college. I mean, the dude is completely jacked, completely diesel, came to Alabama and, he spot played throughout the last couple of years. And then he finally went into the portal. I don't know where he's going to go. Texas seems like a good landing spot if he was going to go somewhere. So I guess we'll have to just wait and see. But one of the guys that hit the transfer portal that we're still waiting to see where he's going to end up at.
Kyle, in terms of what you think he can be, I guess, what he can develop into, give me a top end idea for him. If it all works out, is this a guy that by the end of next year you think could be starting for a Texas or Ole Miss, or is it just a guy that will be a part of the rotation and that would be kind of the top of it for you?
I think it would be surprising for me if he went somewhere and he was an instant starter. That's not taking anything away. I mean, look, there's already starters solidified at a lot of places. If there's a place that needs a linebacker with some good experience, then Kendrick Black Shire probably has a possibility to start. He wasn't going to start at Alabama. I mean, plain and simple. There was no way that he was going to beat out Jahad Campbell or Deontay Lawson. But you have to look at those guys coming back to Alabama as kind of like the Chris Braswell and Dallas Turner from the outside linebackers. That's how good Alabama's inside linebackers are going to be this coming season. That's what everybody's going to be talking about. Alabama's losing some key components, just like all big programs are, but Alabama does have their interior linebackers coming back 100%. I mean, those guys played probably a total of over 600 snaps combined between Deontay Lawson and Jahad Campbell. So I think it was more about he couldn't beat those guys out. So I think he's probably eventually be like a fourth round type guy in the NFL. If that means anything, I don't think he's like a first round guy, but I think it would hurt for him to transfer out of Alabama because I think he would have seen time. There was some linebackers that did get in the rotation this year. I mean, it always is the case, the 2 or 3 deeps, he would have played this year for sure. Him going somewhere else, I think will be a little bit of a blow to Alabama's defense.
Kyle, one last thing on Black Shire before we move on and talk about a brand new world of college football where a Big Ten team is a national champion. He's athletic, but is he, from a football style standpoint, he seems, from what I can remember, downhill thumper. I looked at stuff over on Pro Football Focus, lots of in-the-box stats, not necessarily drifting into coverage, not really being used as an edge guy or a rusher. He's more of a between the hash marks downhill thumper who's athletic, but he's not necessarily athletic in the sense that he can do everything that you'd want a linebacker to do, or do I have that wrong?
No, I think you're spot on. I think he's more of like a downhill type guy that can stuff up the middle, who could stop the run. I don't know. That was kind of one of the question marks, like when Alabama fans are saying, okay, we're excited about him. Like the one downside on his game was the fact that they were skeptical about his him in coverage, for example. So that's kind of what they were thinking about. But I think he is a hard hitter. What's up, Randy? I see you inside the comment box. You need a thumper. Yeah, I think Kendrick Black Shire would be a thumper. I see all you guys inside the comment box. What's up? I appreciate you guys welcoming me back to Orange Bloods. But yeah, he is a guy that's more downhill. I don't think that he's an overall super freak athletic guy from the inside linebacker standpoint.
Kyle, in terms of kind of rounding out the season, as you can imagine, Longhorn fans and our discussion, we've talked about once Washington beat Texas and then we saw what we saw in that title game. I think Texas fans had a little bit of a what could have been vibe with a close loss, and then they see Michigan win like that. Give me the reaction you think that happens in T-Town. What were Alabama fans thinking and processing as they watched Michigan beat Washington like that?
I mean, it hurt. I mean, the thing about it for Alabama's season is it was a year of inconsistency, right? It was like up and down the entire year. A lot of high anxiety games, which Alabama fans aren't accustomed to. And then getting to that Michigan game, I mean, the games that Alabama lost this past season, they were winning those games at one point in time, right? Against Texas, they were winning that game, and then they lost that game. They were beating Michigan and then lost that game. So going into overtime against Michigan, and then, I'm sure you guys have seen it as well. A lot of people talking about the overtime calls at the 4th and 3, Michigan being able to score right away on Alabama's defense. So it was a tough year. And then to see Michigan go on and win the national title, to be 15-0 on the season. I think Michigan's defensive front, when you kind of looked at everything, was the determining factor in some of those games. They were ferocious. I mean, they were beating up everybody. They beat up Alabama for sure. They got to Jalen Milroe, 5 or 6 times? And Penix looked uncomfortable the entire night. I mean, besides a couple of throws that he made, but they were able to get to him pretty much whenever they wanted to. So it does sting for Alabama. You're always going to say, I mean, you guys know this. The expectation is that Alabama should be good next year. Of course, they're going to be good next year. They got everybody coming back, on the offensive side. You lose some key components on defense, but fans are hurt. I think this is the first time under Saban that they haven't won a national title within a 3-year span. So people are starting to really freak out around here.
Man,
is the truth that Georgia is the team that should be pissed about all of this, that they're really the best team in the country and they just caught Alabama on the wrong day, and that when this thing is over with, if it had been an 8-team tournament instead of a 4-team, or if it was a 12 like we'll have next year, is Georgia the best team in the country and they just got left out?
No, I don't think so. I think Michigan was the best team.
Okay.
Michigan's defense, I mean, they were stout. I mean, for anybody so I knew going into the game against the Rose Bowl that Michigan's defensive secondary was going to be much better than anticipated by people who didn't know about it. I watched them play. They're good. They were sticky. They were good in man coverage. They were good over the top. They made it pretty much impossible to get beat over the top from Alabama. What I didn't anticipate is kind of the same thing with Texas' defensive front. Michigan's defensive front was phenomenal. Like, those guys were angry. They were an experienced team. J.J. McCarthy has a lot of snaps under his belt. That was a good team. You throw all the sign stealing and all that stuff to the side. That was a good football team. I think with Georgia, they were up there. I was surprised to see that they're ranked number 4 in the final rankings above Alabama, considering Alabama did beat them head-to-head. But none of that matters. The only thing that matters is that Michigan won the national title. Alabama lost. We move forward. We can talk about the past, but we can't change it. We have to accept the fact that Alabama's offense was inconsistent. Their defense was the backbone of the season. And unless they are able to develop some real, a really quick passing game this coming season, they're probably going to struggle again and not win a national title. So there's a lot of key components coming back for Alabama. I think the fact that Jalen Milroe is such a young quarterback and he finally did get the experience that he needed to get. He had 777 snaps this year. It's a lot of snaps. Michael Penix Jr. had 904 or something like that. With that said, I think this team comes back on offense and they have a lot of fluidity. You guys saw Isaiah Bonds coming back, Kendrick Black coming back. You have Justice Haynes, a very talented freshman at running back. So they're loaded on offense. Got to figure out who's going to be the center and the right tackle. But other than that, all their key components coming back. But yeah, it stings to watch Michigan win if you're an Alabama football fan. But you have to accept the fact that they were beat up front in the trenches.
Kyle, nobody better than Nick Saban at hiring new coaches, and he needs a few again. DC, linebackers, and wide receivers immediately jump to mind. One with retirement, a couple going to other SEC teams. What's the biggest one for you? If I'm a Bama fan wanting to know who they're going to hire, what do you think they're worried about the most? Is it the DC or is it maybe that wide receiver job?
No, the defensive coordinator for sure. It was an instant impact with Kevin Steele's overall mentality, what he did to Alabama's defense, like night and day from Pete Golding to Kevin Steele. The first thing that I remember when Kevin Steele got here is he spoke about the fact that he was like, the Bama standard has never left. It might have changed, but the Bama standard of like hard hitting defense has never left. And he definitely instilled that. I mean, Alabama's defense throughout the season was very consistent. They were challenged throughout the year. They were battle tested. So losing him, and I guess in hindsight, thinking about it, he only had 1 year to collect his pension. So it was kind of by design, bring him in. But I didn't know that he would make that big of an impact right away. So him leaving, you got to figure out who it's going to be. There's a lot of people talking about Travarius Robinson being, who's a defensive backs coach at Alabama, him being elevated. You also have Charlie Strong, who's a defensive analyst that people have thought maybe he could be elevated to a defensive coordinator position. People's dream for Alabama is that Jeremy Pruitt comes back and also Bo Davis in some capacity comes back to Alabama. That would be as good as Alabama winning a national championship. Like, they just want to see Jeremy Pruitt come back to Alabama. Whatever that is, whatever that means, they want to see him come back, and they always ask about Bo Davis. Realistically, are those possibilities with Jeremy Pruitt? I don't know. But those are some names. I think DJ Durkin was supposed to come to Tuscaloosa to talk to Coach Saban in some defensive capacity. And they also did bring over George Hilo, who was at Alabama, then was coaching at Michigan, and now is back at Alabama. His current role is special assistant to Coach Saban. So what that is, so what that is Butch Jones had that title as well. And what you do is you basically are like Saban's right-hand man behind the scenes, and you handle, like, you have to be super organized, and you have to understand like roster management. You're basically, I don't know, is what Coach Saban refers to that position as an intern. Remember when Butch Jones came from Tennessee to Alabama, and he was like, oh, he's a great intern. So that's kind of like the intern spot that Coach Saban currently has at George Hilo.
That's crazy.
What is it about Pruitt? I actually had a completely different question, but I didn't want to leave. I don't really know anything about Jeremy Pruitt other than I know where he's been. I know where he's had success, but what is it about him that makes Alabama fans like so excited? If as a name, like, who is he? What is it about him?
Who is that, Catch?
Pruitt. Like, what's the deal there?
I think the fact that, Pruitt had some success here for Alabama. So they kind of, the past, sometimes people, long for like what the type of success and the type of defense and the type of players that Pruitt coached. A guy from Alabama, a guy that left, and just people are really close to him as a defensive coordinator. Kirby Smart's never going to come back. So if Jeremy Pruitt is out there and they could bring him back, that's kind of like their dream pick to come back, not necessarily as a defensive coordinator, but to come back in some capacity, whether that's a defensive analyst or, someone on the defensive side. But that's who their dream is to get Jeremy Pruitt back. Not, like I said, not as a DC, but in some capacity.
Kyle, the question I was going to ask you, I think this is one of the most – I feel like we're going to have you on throughout the offseason, and this is going to continue to come up, and it's really going to come up when we get to August. And then when the season starts, it's going to be one of the big stories in college football. I think the quarterback position in the SEC next year is going to be dynamite. Georgia's bringing their guy back. Alabama's bringing their guy back. Texas is bringing their guy back. I mean, there's going to be a lot of good teams, and a lot of them had good quarterbacks. And I think where this really becomes a big part of our conversation, there will get to a point where it'll be magazine season in college football, and people start coming out with their all SEC teams.
Yeah.
There's going to be some dudes that get left off. That it's like your first and second team SEC quarterback. Quinn Ewers might not be on that list next year. And there'll be Texas fans that are like, what do you mean Quinn Ewers isn't on that list? But if it were to happen to Milroe, or there's any number of guys. So from your perspective, how would you power rank the SEC quarterbacks right now, including Texas and Oklahoma?
Wow, that's a great question. And power ranking. I think so. The thing about Alabama's, I'll start with Alabama's quarterback room since I'm familiar with them most. The fact that they have Jalen Milroe coming back, who, as I just said, had 777 snaps, started throughout all games but one. You also have Ty Simpson, who did not enter the transfer portal. Now, of course, there's that window after the spring season where things could change, but he's coming back, and he's a very capable quarterback as well. You have Dylan Lonergan, and Dylan Lonergan is a retro freshman at Alabama that actually a lot of the coaches at Alabama wanted to start at the beginning of the season, but it was Coach Saban that overrode that and went with Milroe. You also have five-star Julian Sane at the quarterback roster, or who was just added to the roster for Alabama. So that's a very good unit coming back with some pretty good experience with Milroe leading the way. I think the fact that Texas returns their quarterback, Georgia returns their quarterback, LSU will have a new quarterback. Jackson Dart is coming back. Look, not a lot of people talk about Jackson Dart, I think, because he might not have the overall numbers, but just wait till you play Jackson Dart. Like, if your program plays Jackson Dart, because Coach Kiffin does such a great job schematically working with Jackson Dart. So I think power rankings wise, I mean, specifically what Quinn has been able to do, and the fact that Dylan Gabriel now left Oklahoma, I guess Quinn is the top quarterback coming back, right? I mean, it makes sense between him and Jalen Milroe. Jalen Milroe did finish 6th in the Heisman Trophy voting, but kind of depending on, both of them lost in the semifinals. So I don't know. That's a really good question, but you have so many quarterbacks coming back with a lot of talent. I'm trying to think of new quarterbacks around, but yeah, I think Quinn, right? He's the guy with the most experience coming back. I would probably say him, and I guess Texas and Alabama, right?
I'm wondering, I think Milroe is going to be first team preseason All SEC.
I think maybe the discussion then is it Beck or Ewers? Is that the next discussion you have to have?
Yeah. I don't know. I guess I think Milroe over Beck, and I think probably Quinn over Jalen, or vice versa. So whatever the case is, those are the you kind of look around, and it's not going to be Jackson Dart. He's probably going to be like a third or fourth team or whatever, but he's up in the fold as well. So yeah, those I think those are the two top quarterbacks coming back.
It is a hell of a position in that conference.
Yeah.
Is the dude at Missouri coming back as well? I can't recall if he's coming back or not, but there's a lot. There are just guys that, all over the place. It's going to be obviously a wild conference next year. Kyle, in terms of, I'm trying to think of a good I know what I was going to ask you. Give me a possibility prospect discussion on Jace McLennan. He's a guy that I saw he was headed into the pros. I've watched him play, and at times there's been a big moment or two. Yeah. But then I'm thinking, man, does he really have a shot? So do you think he can make an NFL roster and make an impact in the league at all?
I don't know. I would probably say no. I really respect his game, but running backs in the NFL are kind of a dime a dozen. Unless you're truly, truly dynamic, it's going to be hard for any of those guys to really make an impact. Now, I think he is an NFL guy, but he's not a Jahmyr Gibbs. He's not a Najee. He's not a Brian Robinson. He's clearly not, some of these other great backs that Alabama has had. He is a good back. Now, he could have came back, and actually, there was a couple programs asking me if he could have. That there was kind of some smoke with maybe Ole Miss reaching out to him. That never, with Judkins leaving, maybe they could bring on a more experienced running back to the fold. Jace is a tough runner. He's very good. He had a really nice season for Alabama. Nothing overly flashy. I think he finished out with 1,900 yards and 20 touchdowns during his career at Alabama. He pretty much stayed healthy. I think he was banged up for the SEC title game, but very, very good running back. I don't think he's a guy who is, screams like top end NFL talent. I could be wrong on that. Not an NFL scout, just saying what I know. Roydell Williams, who was the other senior running back for Alabama, who had another year because of COVID, he did hit the transfer portal, and he hasn't informed anyone where he is going to go, but he's a really good running back as well.
Kyle, last question for me.
Yeah.
Just had Alabama, one of the things I'd heard on the streets was that there was maybe some thought that Isaiah Bond might go into the portal. He didn't. He's coming back. He'll be an incredibly important piece for Alabama next year. Had that rumor made it to Tuscaloosa? Was there any eyes on Bond in terms of what it is that he was going to do coming out of this season? Obviously, when Milroe's the quarterback, you're not quite putting up the monster numbers that maybe he wants. I'm just curious, like, had that made it y'all's way?
Yeah, 100%. So if you don't like, Isaiah Bond is like talk about like his mantra, his mindset. He will tell you exactly what's on your mind. Like you could literally ask him that question, be like, hell yeah, I thought about it. Because I wasn't getting the ball, I wasn't catching 200 yards, and I'm pissed off. But like, that's literally how he is. He's the best interview you'd ever have. SIDs are sweating when he gets the podium because he will just tell you. He'd be like, "Yeah, I thought that play was BS, whatever." We had heard that was a rumor. I'm sure that Alabama did everything they could from the NIL package deal to keep him happy. He didn't put up the yards that I thought he could have put up. The guy is an absolute rideout. So what a rideout is like those old, a couple years ago, Alabama had Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs, Jalen Waddle, all these guys kind of roll out. John Mechie, all these guys roll out. Those were like the rideouts, and then it kind of dipped off. That guy's back. Like, that guy's a monster. So I did hear that. He was also supposed to be returning punts at the back end of the season, but that was replaced by Caleb Downs, who was a freshman. So however they can get him the ball and him taken care of, I think he's one of the best wide receivers, if not the best, returning into the SEC. I mean, among college football, the guy's a monster.
Good stuff. I'm good, Catch. You good?
We're good, Kyle. Thank you so much. Go enjoy a little bit of downtime, right? Like, a little bit or not?
I don't know, man. I'm entering this year. I'm hungry. I'm just like, I'm trying to kill it. I got like a really my mindset is just to go all in 2024. I'm feeling good. So I'm all about it. I'm all about eating. So I'm not scared to work, and I'm really appreciative of the opportunities you guys have me here. So I'm just going to keep dialed in and, plan for another successful 2024.
And you know what that is, Catch? There's two parts to that hunger. Part one, not winning the national championship because he feels like Alabama's entitled to it. And number two, Kyle, Georgia's on the schedule in the regular season next year. A little extra excitement, right?
Yeah. You got Auburn and Oklahoma on the back end. So, no, it's going to be exciting. Yep. Yeah.
Not no softy on the schedule right before the Iron Bowl. Like, it's a different world in the SEC in 24.
Yeah. No, it's going to be an amazing game. It's a completely different college football world that we're about to enter.
Yep. It's going to be so exciting.
Ever seen. Yeah, most exciting we've ever seen.
A brand new SEC with adding Texas and Oklahoma, and then a 12-team playoff. Everything about college football changes in 2024, and we will be checking in as much as we can with Kyle Henderson. He's one of our favorite guests. Kyle, go just enjoy the rest of the day, but stay hungry. We'll be watching you eat over at the Alabama YouTube channel. Guys, if you haven't subscribed to his channel, do it today. Get notifications, and just go randomly like some videos as a show of thanks. Kyle, thank you very much, my man.
All right, see ya.
You got it.
Kyle Henderson, Bama football on YouTube. And for the record, to the folks in the chat, Cotton, this is rude. There's no reason to type that when he talked about Charlie actually being the DC. Texas fans definitely, just like they would say to LSU, stay away from Bo. You don't need any Bo Davis. Bo Davis going to stay in Austin is what they're thinking there. Thanks to Kyle.
Bo is expensive, though. Like, he's getting to be an expensive toy. If LSU or Alabama want to make a play for him, it's got to be like over 1.5, and he's not a coordinator. So I feel like Texas is in a bit of a sweet spot. If Bo leaves, it won't be because of money. It'll just be because he wanted to go back and work with Saban, or he wanted to go back home to LSU. But it's not. I don't think Texas. Right. I think you know what Texas thinks about Bo, Chad, is that every year Bo's going to have his name up for jobs.
Yes,
and that this year was just the annual Bo Davis. Somebody wants him bowl, and
Now, if Saban wants to make him the DC, that's a different discussion.
Yeah, but That's not what people think of Bo.
Right. But
they think of Bo as a fantastic defensive line coach. They know he can recruit. But nobody, I think, is looking to hire him as a DC. Maybe you could make him a co-DC, but that's really just a title. I think that it's about where he wants to be happy and live. By the way, the Isaiah Bond thing was something that I had heard but never mentioned. Because, I got burned. I've been burned twice by Barry and Brown. So
Right.
on the streets, there are these names that get mentioned, and a lot of it is like agent stuff, right? Because we heard Jalen Polk too, right? He ends up going to the NFL. There are these whispers, and I think sometimes it gets permeated through the agent industry that there are guys that are potentially on the verge of leaving. Isaiah Bond, I think, is one of those guys that, Kyle was hearing it. I think when we talk about, what was Texas doing with its wide receiver recruiting? They took Matthew Golden because they think he's a star. And I think they've waited all the way out until even after the national championship game to see, are any badass super receivers going to enter the portal? And it just doesn't look like it's going to happen.
By the way, if you missed that on Jalen Polk, he is officially headed to the NFL. Adonai Mitchell made it official yesterday as well that he is headed to the NFL, to the draft. So we'll obviously be keeping our eyes on that. We do have a super chat that came in the last few minutes, back to that linebacker conversation. But before we get there, Catch, I was trying to make him thirsty with Deep Eddy vodka. See if you can make him hungry with prime shrimp, because it's always time for some good shrimp.
Well, look, if you were going to go over to Deep Eddy, or, maybe even you could go into a Specs, take your prime shrimp meal with you. It heats up easily. You take it with you. It's good eating. It's affordable. Honestly, it's the bang, 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 I call it, of the prime shrimp pitch. It tastes fantastic. It's incredibly affordable. And it heats up and is ready to go like one offensive series of football. Like, that's about it. Or maybe two, depending on if it's like two teams that can't play offense. Sorry, I'm making myself laugh. The bottom line is go to primeshrimp.com or scan that QR code. Order up to 6 packs or more. Get 30% off your entire order. Use that promo code OrangeBloods30. If you left New Orleans and you miss it, Prime Shrimp can bring a little New Orleans to you with all of the various meals that they have. Again, check them out. I've yet to hear one person order from Prime Shrimp and not remotely, like, nobody is ever unhappy. So scan the QR code, go check it out. Go to the website, primeshrimp.com. But it's that simple, Chad. Good food, incredibly cost efficient, and easy to make. And like, I can have my 9-year-old could make some prime shrimp, easy peasy, ready to go.
Always sounds tasty. Always ready to go. And we always love putting those super chats right to the top of the line. Thank you to Football Junkie. It's an interesting one, Cats. I think a lot of Texas fans may have this mindset right now. $4.99. Thank you for that. I think Hill will be an all SEC linebacker and one of the best at his position. But if you take him off the field, who does Texas put in? Back to that linebacker discussion, Catch. That's big now. Not that linebackers were ever small in college football, but the style that you face throughout college football, offensive coordinators will realize if you've got weakness at linebacker. They'll realize if you've got stiffness at linebacker. They'll realize if you've got less physical guys at linebacker, and they'll take advantage of it. So it's going to be critical to see. And I thought you mentioning the new coach earlier, I don't know if that can be done enough. This position we're talking about today is also the one, Catch, where they just got a DC at a Power 5 to agree to be their linebackers coach. That could be a big deal for Texas as well.
Yeah, I wonder. I don't think a lot of linebacker decisions have probably been made. I mean, why hire that guy if you're going to tell him where his pupils belong? And so you got to. I think there's a big question about where you put Anthony Hill. Because the thing is, there's a lot of, look, there's a common line of thinking that, forget about the names for a second, that the will linebacker at Texas is kind of where other schools would put their middle linebackers. And that the Mike linebacker needs to be your super athletic guy because they look at the way they use Jalen Ford, right? And so, but I don't view it that way just because That's what Texas did this year. And that's kind of what we've seen with the Texas personnel in the last couple of years, based on the fact that that's been their personnel. Texas hasn't had like badass NFL linebackers. Anthony Hill is a chance to be a badass NFL linebacker. How he's used is the thing for me that is most important, because I think he's a guy that you need to. I always think of that quote that Sergio Kendall's high school coach made about him after the first couple of years, when Sergio was struggling a little bit to kind of live up to the hype of being the number one player in the state back in 2006. And he said, you don't make thoroughbreds run backwards.
Right.
That's how I feel about Anthony Hill.
That's a great line, by the way. Great
It's
line.
an all-time great line.
It's such a good line.
Because we can all, like, in our minds, imagine the players. Harold Perkins, perfect example, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. LSU fans are nodding right now. Yes.
Like,
yes.
let him find the ball and just let him go. And I think Anthony Hill's got a lot of that. They do need somebody to replace Jalen Ford. Who is that guy? And look, they needed David Benda to come back because they don't have the numbers at linebacker really. You know, I asked somebody about Benda last week, and they were like, yeah, well, we expect him back, and he'll come back. Where else is he going to go? And I don't think you say it, depending on maybe the way I said it and the way he typed it and meant it are different. But David Benda probably wasn't going to be drafted in the NFL off of this season.
Mm-mm.
And could he go through the portal? Some place that would offer him the prestige, the NIL, he's got a pathway to start next year at linebacker. It exists.
No doubt.
I wonder, it's one of the things with Nansen that we'll find out, the new linebackers coach at Texas. And do he and Kwiatkowski view what they have in a different manner? And does Kwiatkowski's defense change a little bit with the change in personnel and a change at the linebacker position with the coach, with there being a new co-DC? We'll see. But I think the thing that just sticks out on my head the most is Texas has a lot of – they took a big linebacker class last year in recruiting. This year, they signed Ty Anthony Smith, and that's it. So Anthony Hill played as a true freshman. Surprise, right? But everybody else wasn't Anthony Hill. They weren't Malik Muhammad. They weren't named any freshmen that pushed themselves onto the field this season because they were that good. So they don't have anybody where it's like he's going to be the absolute starter next year among the guys. I think a lot of people hope that Leona Lafau ends up maybe being the starting Mike linebacker.
Yeah.
But if he does, when he goes to the big house, you'll have no idea whether he's ready for that or not.
Yeah, because then it's about, right, what does he get exposed, or does somebody else get exposed in that game early on in the season? That would be big. Catch, as you're talking about it, I'm thinking about, if you're a Texas fan and you're thinking about a guy that's been pretty good that you'd love to be really good, could we pick two that are more important than number 33 and number 95 right now? Like, if you could get Alfred Collins and David Benda to both dial it up to a badass level in 24.
I just don't have those expectations for Benda. I think Benda, here's the thing. I think Benda and Black Shire are kind of the same guy.
Okay.
Now, is Black Shire potentially a slight upgrade? Maybe.
But is it enough would be the question then.
I don't know. And look, maybe you bring those guys in and say, fellas, we don't know who's going to be the starter. Knock yourself out. The problem is, if you're Black Shire, you could have done that at Alabama. He wants to go somewhere where he knows he's going to be the starter. And I think ultimately, I think Texas will be honest with him. I think they'll say, we'll give you a chance, But like Benda's coming back. We've got Anthony Hill. Like you'll have to compete for a spot. And I don't know that, again, he already had that at Alabama. If his old position coach at Ole Miss is telling him, we've got a spot for you, then that may be too much to overcome. And I think it makes complete sense at that point if he does that. We'll see. I think at Texas, he gives you depth behind Benda and maybe a slight upgrade. But you need more than, I think, a slight upgrade of David Benda. Texas became a better football team when David Benda started to get replaced by Anthony Hill. And by the end of the season, Anthony Hill was arguably the best player on that defense. Now, he led the team in tackles in the Big 12 championship game. Late in the season, he wasn't making the big plays, but it was kind of all over the field, making plays the way you want to start in linebacker to make plays. And I think they weren't having him do some of the specialist stuff that, quite frankly, I loved him doing. It's a fascinating conversation. They're all rhetorical questions at this point, and it will be one of the positions in the spring that probably won't receive as much interest as, say, I don't know, Arch Manning, but it will be a big part of next. I don't know if you know this, Chad, but you have to have good linebackers in the SEC. It's a rule. I think it's in the SEC constitution. And you don't win in the SEC high level if you're not good at linebacker. It's a non-starter.
Yeah, totally agree. Thank you for that super chat. Football junkie, those go right to the front of the line. By the way, to Chris, just an interesting comment here. This was a bad year to only have a 4-team playoff.
They're
Chris,
all bad years.
Chris, just to expand your thought process. But yes, of course, it was. Every year is. They've needed 6 spots for years. I would argue now they at least need 5. They didn't have it. I'll say it again. When Texas played USC, there was not a proper system. That was not a year that only needed 2 teams. There's never been one in college football. They just fool you into believing it. We now get to move past all that. But thank you.
Look, you know what I would say, Chris? Some people who hate the new system would have said this was a perfect year to just have 2 teams.
Right. 2 undefeateds. It was easy. Real simple. Yeah. That's the kind of garbage you get out of that thought process. Thankfully, we're moving towards the 12-team stuff next year.
I love that you're so pro more teams, that you're snooty about it. You're so condescending about it.
And again, see, I'm not pro more teams, Catch. I'm pro enough teams, and we've never had it. It's not about – I'm not one of those that says, let's go to 12 or 16 or 24. I wasn't in favor of 12. I just kept saying it's got to be 6. And you're just missing the whole point if you're not putting 6 in. And now at least they're getting – hell, they're going twice that. But, yeah, you got to – I mean, Catch, my favorite tournament in all of sports is about to start. The NFL playoffs never miss. They never get it wrong. All they do is produce truth and the truth of football. Sometimes it's historic and sometimes it ain't. And sometimes it's pretty and sometimes it ain't. But it's always real and it's always the truth. And nobody gets to bitch at the end and go, well, my team was – your team had a shot like everybody else did, and they just weren't good enough. That's the beauty of it. And now college football is headed there too. It's going to be so much fun. Can't wait. Can't wait.
So we were getting ready to play buy or sell here on House Divided. Can I just tell you something?
Sure.
I have a prime on prime 4-way matchup.
Ooh.
That's specifically about a body part.
That is exciting. So a fatal 4-way for a prime on prime. Well, we'll definitely end with that. That means I'll start buy or sell when we get there. Real quick before I do that, Catch, I'll talk about the hot and cold of McCullough Heating and Air Conditioning. It's real simple.
People are going to need it in 5 days. It's about to get real cold.
It's real simple right now. It's about to get cold as hell. And then in June or July, what's going to happen? It's going to get hot as hell. McCullough makes sure both sides of it are running the right way. $39. That's all The diagnostic fee is to check your system. Have them check it out. Make sure your AC part's ready to roll for later on, and make sure your heating part is ready for you know what that is coming to a big hunk of Texas and the country when they start talking polar vortexes or whatever it is. You're going to see temperatures getting down under freezing pretty quick. So check them out. They have over 1,500 4.8 star ratings on Google. There's all kinds of different rebates and incentives you can get. If you need a new system, they will help you with the rebate paperwork, and they've been doing it since 1977. These are the folks that put the system that's in my house right now. I've trusted them for years. You can too. QR code right there, 518-0119 or coolmenow.com. Get it taken care of before things get wacky. Coming up, McCullough Heating and Air Conditioning. All right, so I will start the buy or sell so that we may finish with your fatal four-way. Does that work?
Fair enough.
And mine will finish with an interesting Cowboys psychology question
and
for
hey,
you.
and it's a four-way matchup.
Mm-hmm.
It's a man's game.
All right.
And I don't know that there will be a consensus.
Okay. I'm excited to see what that is, and I'm definitely excited to see what you do as a Cowboys fan here in a second. But first, catch buy or sell number one. Quinn Ewers will be back in 2024. He's about to make it official one way or the other, and he will have to beat out Arch for the job.
I mean, sure, bye. He's going to be the starting quarterback. It's a late in the show, into the second hour to start with the Arch Quinn battle.
Mm-hmm.
There are people in the program who believe that Arch might be better than Quinn by next year. And you ask the question. I'm not going to pretend like I don't hear people that I listen to and trust say that, yes, he will have to beat out Arch, that it won't be him shooting from the layup line. I think, of course, he's going to be the starting quarterback. But in the spirit of Arch being better and maybe making that thing a little more competitive, I will say bye.
Fair enough. All right. Buy or sell number two. Catch, at this point, you'd tell a Texas basketball fan to sign for a Sweet 16 guarantee as fast as possible.
What the fuck are you talking about? Sell.
Sell?
I don't even know if they're going to make the team. Make the tournament.
Okay, then it's got to be a buy.
At this point, you tell a Texas Hoops fan to sign. Oh, well, I thought because you think they thought. I guess I misinterpreted the meaning of the question.
Yeah. I'm saying you lay the paper in front of them that will guarantee that.
Yeah. I do that almost any year.
Okay, just checking. Just want to see. Okay. All right. Buy or sell number three.
All right. I thought you were saying like they should believe that a Sweet 16 as a guarantee was on the table.
Oh, no.
Okay.
No, I'm saying I'll give it to them, not that the team. Not
I got you. Oh yeah, no, like yes.
It's a strange basketball team to watch right now.
Nobody's thinking Elite Eight. Trust me, Chad.
No,
so,
yeah, we'll see what they do. Headed
to souls at this point.
Headed to West Virginia next. Buy or sell number three. Catch, the Cowboys and Lions will have that rematch at Jerry World.
Bye. Yeah, I think so. The Lions are good. They get a little weird. So do the Cowboys, though. So, let those two teams get weird again at Jerry World. I don't know that that's the team I want a rematch against. They're just pesky and a problem. And it's not that they're great. It's that Campbell's built a team that doesn't give a you-know-what, and they'll go fist fight you for 60 minutes.
Yeah.
And sometimes the Cowboys, those are the teams they have problems with.
Right. And he technically beat the Cowboys. He circused his way out of it at the very end, but he technically beat them. So we'll see. That would be the matchup if they both win. Buy or sell number four. Catch, you believe Draymond Green and you're rooting for him.
What the hell am I supposed to believe, first of all?
You
That he was
believe
going to retire?
you believe when he says he's hurt his team enough. You believe when he says that he can get it under control and be a better teammate and stop costing his team the moments that he's cost them.
Look, I don't like anybody to self-destruct. I'm not a guy that sits around and enjoys people self-destructing, right? I feel awful for those people. So I do believe in this instance, Draymond said a lot of stuff, Chad, so I needed to clarify what I was supposed to believe.
Right.
But in that vein, yes. I don't look at the Warriors box score every night and root for Draymond Green or anybody else on that team. But in general, I root for human beings. And yeah, man, it'd be great if Draymond Green never did anything again that he needed to be suspended for. I'm rooting for that, sure.
All right, and finally, Catch, let's go to petty fandom. As a Cowboys fan, you'd rather see the Texans win Super Bowl #1 than see the Niners win #6.
Ooh, you teased this question.
I have been battling with it psychologically this entire week. If you had to have one or the other, you would rather see the Texans hoist that trophy than see the Niners get into the 6 club?
Bye.
Whew.
And let me explain it to you, okay?
Okay.
The thing partly about the Niners, they haven't won one since we've won one.
True.
So
lost twice.
They've been there, but they haven't won one. And I don't want them in front of us. And there's something that makes, if all of the teams that I hate start winning the Super Bowl again, like the Eagles did it. In my world, one of the things I used to just live on was like, well, the Eagles have never won a Super Bowl. And then that happened. And it was like, they're better than us now. And if you're not winning the Super Bowl, you're just doing the same thing that we are. So yeah, it's close, man. I understand the question, but at the end of the day, no, I don't want the Niners getting to 6.
Yeah, no, I understand it. That is a lot of interesting team history discussions in these NFL playoffs that we can get into as well. Halfway through buy or sell, Catch has got a great way to end. Let's see what the others are. What do you got, Catch?
Real quick, we'll go to Kevin. Kevin's got a super chat that I just want to answer real quick. $9.99.
Okay.
Buy or sell Mario Williams from USC would be a take for UT. I think buy. And I don't know if he'd be an automatic starter because he's had a very uneven USC career, but I think so. Yes, buy.
Okay.
I mean, the guys they're looking at right now, I think are in the Mario Williams territory.
Gotcha.
All right. Buy or sell #1 after our discussion today about the Texas linebackers. You think the Longhorns have a mini linebacker problem going into 2024?
Absolutely buy. Lose a guy like Jalen Ford. I mean, problem is, mini problem. That's probably a good way to describe it. I'll say buy. I wouldn't call it this major concern, but losing a guy like Ford, you've got Hill, and you know that, but if you're discussing what you're talking about today, making Hill less of an attack dog, and heck, you didn't even use him as an attack dog when Jalen Ford was on the field. Yeah, there's something to work out there. You're going into a new SEC with your current DC that is old Pac-12, and you're asking an old Pac-12 DC to be your new linebacker coach and figure out new SEC and how to make your linebackers effective. Yeah, it's something that absolutely has to be watched closely.
Real quick, there's a lot of talk in the Specs chat about your question involving the Texans and the Niners.
Yes.
I think there's some youngins in the chat that don't remember what it sounded like when the Texans beat the Cowboys in the first ever game between those two teams.
No, I know. Yeah, this is a true big brother, little brother in every way. And do you really want to see them? Because I can make the argument, Catch, that you could just go, well, wait a minute. The Patriots are already at 6. The Niners getting 6. It's like, okay, fine. We'd be alone at 5, but we wouldn't have to hear the folks in H-Town telling us
And these are also people that don't live in Houston, Chad.
Yeah, that they'd want it more. Oh my God! Like, especially if the Cowboys don't make the championship game again, and you have to hear about the Texans and a rookie quarterback winning it. So that's why that.
Chad, you gave us two hells, and we had to pick which hell we wanted to be in more or less. Right. But the people who are acting like the Texans winning a championship wouldn't be any of the Cowboys' business, you guys don't remember.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's a part of it too. Like you have to consider that, especially if you are like me and you are a Dallas area dude. The Dallas and Houston folks think of this in a completely different way than the rest of y'all do.
All right, I'm curious to see where you go with this question.
Okay.
Because before I'm giving you some backstory before I actually ask the question.
All right. I haven't looked yet.
But when we think about the second person in this question, we think about the last game extensively in this question, okay?
Okay.
Here it is. Buy or sell number 2. Quinn Ewers is better after his sophomore season than Vince Young was after his sophomore season in 2004.
Whoo, man. That's a bold one. All right, let me walk through this a second in my Quinn Ewers is better after his sophomore season than Vince Young after his sophomore season.
So you've got the Vince that won the Rose Bowl, but at midseason people wanted to bench him.
Right.
How do you answer that question?
Boy, that's interesting. I will go with where things excuse me. I'll go with where things ended up at the finish line, and I will sell. Because by the time you get there, he figured out a way to beat Michigan that night, and he showed you that Kansas magic in that game. Those two plays right there were like the day Vince became Vince for me. And I haven't quite seen Quinn Ewers go to that level. So I'm gonna be old man and go Vince. I'll sell.
That is the correct answer. Okay. It's a good question.
It really was. Yeah.
Speaking of good questions, buy or sell number 3. You'd rather have a beer with Abraham Lincoln than George Washington.
Wow. Is this a prime on prime, or this is like I'm digging them out now?
You answer this however you want to answer.
However we want. Okay. You know what? We'll do a while they're in office. How about that? While they're in office, I'd rather have a beer with Abraham Lincoln than George Washington.
Well, Abe was pretty stressed in office.
Yeah.
George was less stressed.
Yeah.
George walking around like, nobody should have this job more than 8 years.
That is true. There are a lot of reasons to go either way. I don't know for that, but it's obviously there's mountains of history on each one. I'll buy and go Lincoln. That's what my gut said when you threw it out.
Wooden teeth.
I'll buy and go Lincoln. What was that one?
Someone said, "Can you drink beer with wooden teeth?"
Ah, yeah, that's right. Touch the wooden teeth. No, I wouldn't want that. Yeah, I'll go as modern as I can. I'll go Abe Lincoln.
All right, buy or sell number 4. You like the Cowboys to beat the Packers this weekend? No question.
Oh, sell. It's the NFL playoffs.
Okay.
Sell. And I know it's not Aaron Rodgers, but I do have little feelings when that uniform and that helmet shows up for a playoff game in the recent past. So I'll sell, but I do think they're going to win the game. I'm not thinking that there's any guarantees. This is a Cowboys team that can occasionally, their downs are weird, and I still don't fully trust them. I fully don't trust them to keep all the details in line. So I think they win it, but I think it could be a little bit of a battle. They love shots. Come on. Too soon, Cotton. Too soon. How dare you? Other than that, President Lincoln, how was your drink with Chad Hastings? Oh my God.
All right. Here we go.
Terrible. All right, here it is. Man's game. Let's do it.
It's prime on prime, and we're talking legs.
Prime on prime and pins. Here we go.
Carrie Underwood's legs
Yes.
greater than Blake Lively's legs, but
Okay.
not even the legs of Sunday Night Football can compete with Stacy Keebler's legs unless we're talking about Tina Turner's legs.
Wow. There's a lot of legs going on in this
It's a
discussion.
four-way battle royal.
It really is. But I do think that you might have laid it out perfectly. So Carrie Underwood's legs clearly are the show on Sunday night. What an incredible outfit that is. I love Blake Lively, and head to toe, I might go Blake Lively, but leg to leg, I think it is Carrie. Not even the legs of Sunday Night Football can compete with Stacy Keebler. That is clearly true, because you know I'm a Keebler guy, so I'm buying that part. Unless we're talking about the Tina Turner legs. Tina Turner's legs were actually a part of the act to such a degree that she's the first famous person that we know of that got them insured, and she's freaking Tina Turner. It's a buy. That's well put together. Well done. Absolutely. That's a buy. It's absolutely
I'm proud
a buy.
of myself, Chad.
Yeah.
I realize there's a lot of words and there's
Yeah.
8 legs,
There's
but
a-
I laid it out in a way that I feel like I told a story. There's a narrative. And in the end, I knew I would take you down to the road that you wanted to go down.
Yeah, that's not what sports fans normally call the octopus, but in a weird way, you created like a prime on prime octopus that you weren't even planning on.
I was planning. I wasn't going to call it the octopus.
Yeah, that's a little
Blake,
different.
what do you got?
I've got some breaking news here. Per Adam Schefter, a
Here we go.
shocker in Seattle. Pete Carroll is expected to be out as the Seahawks head coach. He can still
Wow.
remain in the organization, but not as the head coach. Just at the Twitter feed.
I'm not shocked because it might have even been yesterday that I've seen this, that somebody asked Pete Carroll if he still had the fire. And he was like, oh, yeah, of course I've got the fire. I have. And I thought, when you start getting asked that question, you're in trouble.
Well,
And
yeah, I
there
saw
it
the
is.
headline. That headline yesterday about he plans to coach in 2024. I thought that's a weird thing to have to say, but he's what, 72?
he ain't, you know what? I don't know that Pete is ever coaching in the NFL again. 72 is up there. What are you committing to?
Yeah, that's true. How long would the contract be? But he is, I mean, he's a different 72. We know that, Catch. Like you and I have talked about that. We can talk about how old, the Hubie Brown or Mick Jaggers of the world are. But
Hubie's like the only guy that I'll sign off on.
Right, but watch him perform, right? So then at 72, Pete Carroll's still out there chunking the ball around before the game. He's got the energy. If he's ready to come in the office and grind and go get it, I mean, I don't know. He damn near took that team to the playoffs this year. He needed something to happen, but
It's not that Pete Carroll at 72 is not a badass NFL coach. He is. My thing is, like, what are you doing? Are you signing him to a contract till he's 76, 77? I mean, the thing is, when you make that hire, you're committing to a 70-something. It's not the 72 that I have an issue with. It's, like,
what he'll be at the end of it.
I mean, I don't know where the cutoff point is.
Yeah.
But at some point there is a cutoff.
Man, that is wild. And then we immediately get these two chats that Pete Carroll could go to Michigan and Jim Harbaugh to Seattle would be Carroll 2.0. We got those two back to back.
Look, Harbaugh's going somewhere. There's actually a lot of really good jobs that seem like they're going to be open at the same time. Curious to see how all of this breaks down. Ultimately, if you're Seattle, you don't really have the answer at quarterback. So whoever they hire, they got to hire somebody that's going to be in it for the long haul.
Yeah.
Look, man, I have so much respect for that man. Can coach, Pete Carroll. But man, look, he's 72, but when does he turn 73?
I do not know when Pete Carroll's birthday is.
Hold on, let me look it up. Pete Carroll.
I know Nick Saban is Halloween.
He'll turn 73 in September.
Okay.
So you're hiring a 73-year-old coach. You give him a 4-year deal.
I love the idea for him, if he's done coaching, if he's really done, I love the idea of him staying in the front office, if they can make all that work.
I'm not an ageist. I just, look, man, I kind of feel the same way about a president, man. They start, like, both of them that are probably running this year. It's like, at what point, like, you're in your mid-80s? We got nobody better than somebody who's closer to 100 than 50. I'm just saying.
Yeah, and officially the end of a pretty wild era there in Seattle. Got one Super Bowl, should have had two, but Pete Carroll may be done coaching. That is a crazy story.
Like when I was young, nobody had a problem telling 75-year-old people, go be retired.
Right. It also just depends on the job, right? We're talking about head coach in the NFL.
Well, job, and when I was a kid, was anybody 75? I feel like it used to be, you retired when you were like 63.
Mm-hmm.
And I realize there are exceptions, right? You got coaches and there are rare exceptions, but it felt like that was a thing. And now people can't retire because they ain't got enough money. So they got to keep working beyond 63. But I don't know, man. If Pete Carroll was the head coach of the Cowboys, I'd be okay with that. But if you ask me, like, okay, if Pete Carroll was the coach right now, how many more elite years does Pete Carroll have? I don't know the answer. And the thing is, when I make a hire where I'm paying someone, I don't know, like $10 million a year, I'd like to know an answer. Hey, if I'm going to write a $40 or $50 million contract, we talk about Bryce Harper and some of these baseball guys signing deals, and we talk about, well, they're going to get up in age. I don't know. I'm a little squeamish about it.
Here's an interesting one I just looked up. I was about to ask you, and I thought, well, let me just look it up. Belichick's 71.
I know, and I kind of feel.
So, like, let me ask it this way, Catch. If Jerry called you today and said, hey, don't tell anybody, but I'm thinking about calling Belichick and seeing what he's thinking.
I mean, I'd take Belichick for like 3 or 4 more seasons.
Okay.
At 75, I'm probably like, time to move on. And that's the thing about Pete. Pete, if he signed a 4-year deal, wherever Pete would go, Pete's going to get like a 4-year deal at a minimum, right? Like, you got to show that man some respect. You can't be hiring your coach on a 2-year deal or a 3-year deal.
They just put out this statement regarding Pete.
Whatever. I don't care about statements.
They're just saying they're going to keep him in the organization as an advisor, and he's stepping down from the head coaching role.
Interesting. Yeah, I wonder how. I mean, we'll wonder if he agreed to that yet. That would be the question. But
they amicably agreed. I mean, it's like it's different when the rabbit's holding the gun. It's kind of that way for so long in this relationship. Pete Carroll's had the gun, but now he's not at a point anymore where he gets to have it. The rabbit has it.
Yeah.
And the rabbit gets to say in a press release, we've amicably agreed. Well, yeah, Pete didn't say that yesterday.
Right. Exactly.
Anyway.
Yeah. All right. Just about ready. I do have a couple stats for catching all of you before we get out of here. But I also need to tell you about sinus and snoring specialist. I've been talking about my wife's great experience with sinus and snoring. I've told you about my great experience with sinus and snoring. Real simple. If you are snoring, you're going through sleep apnea stuff, you have bad sinus headaches, you have awful allergies, the cedar fever is getting you and it's driving you crazy, your head's all clogged up and everything, they can deal with all of it. The latest in ear, nose, and throat. Dr. Slaughter, double board certified in ear, nose, and throat. What does that mean? It means he's got surgical and non-surgical options that others just don't have. There's your QR code. I know some of you have already checked out Sinus and Snoring Specialists. We appreciate it. Tell them that you heard about it on Orange Bloods Live. Sinus and Snoring Specialists feel clear, rested, and healthy. All right, Catch, before we get out of here, I got a couple quick football stats for you. We'll go pro first and the Cowboys. I saw this stat the other day. It's a wild one. And just think about these teams, and do the Cowboys actually remind you of these teams? It's a little blurry, but most 20-point wins in a season since the merger. The Cowboys have 9 of them, along with Greatest Show on Turf, Almost Perfect Patriots, and Favre and the Packers. 3 of the other 4 go to the Super Bowl. 2 of them win it. So, Catch, when you watch this 23 Cowboys, you get the feel of any of those other 3 teams.
No, like they're probably as good as the Packers were. Like the Patriots and the Rams were an event.
Yes.
The Packers that year, they just got over the hump. And they were always really good, which is very similar to this the thing is, Dak's not Brett Favre. But the teams as a whole, they're comparable. I don't think of the Packers, like the 96 Packers aren't on any of those Cowboys or 49er team levels from the 4 years before. They weren't as good as the Washington team in 91. So they were just, and it kind of got proven when they lose to Denver in the Super Bowl. So, that's kind of where I'm at. Yeah, they actually do kind of feel like the 96 Packers a little bit.
Right. And again, the 96 Packers are the ones that won it all, just to be clear. They're the ones that beat.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. So interesting in thinking about it for Cowboys fans. What you want is for them to be what those Packers were, because the Packers lost a game to the Cowboys in the regular season that year. And then they went 8 in a row, and they were all double-digit wins. That team just started stomping folks all the way through winning the Super Bowl. But think about those other 2. The Almost Perfect Patriots lost the close game, couldn't figure out a one-score game. And think about the Greatest Show on Turf. Why did they win? Because they won close games. They beat the Bucs by that much in a clunky, weird NFC title game, and then they beat the Titans by a yard because their linebacker made one of the greatest tackles in the history of the Super Bowl. Are the Cowboys ready for those details? We will find out. I certainly hope so. How wild is it that the 2 five ring club teams are 1 and 2 in the NFC playoffs? Let's see if they can both get there. The last one for you, Catch. How about this wild college stat that I saw pop up? Shout out to Matt Berry and the crew on College Football Final. The last 60 years of college football, only 5 champs have led at the half of every single game. In my lifetime, in your lifetime, Catch, it's 4 of those 5. Our man Blake, the super producer, was only alive for the last 2, but there's the group.
Wow.
And think about the variation of football here, Catch. We would assume the 73 Notre Dame team is maybe a 3 yards and a cloud of dust run team. 84 BYU's definitely not that. Then you go to Tommy Frazier in Nebraska and the way they handled business. You and I both know the 01 Miami team might be the greatest collection of college football talent anybody ever thought of. And then this year's Michigan team. So congrats to Harbaugh and McCarthy and those guys for being on this list. Is there a separate discussion you might have to have because of all the all the investigations maybe? But wow, that one staggered me. Leading at the half every single game and being the champ undefeated, that is hard to do.
Is it okay for me to admit I really don't know anything about the 73 Notre Dame team?
I don't either, right? That's a year before I was born. I'm just going to, again, I assume that was a cloud of dust team. If they went 5 wides and spread it out, sorry, Notre Dame fans.
First of all, their starting quarterback was a guy by the name of Tom Clements.
Okay, Tom
Clements. He threw for 882 yards in 10 games.
Okay, that's kind of, all right, there it is.
Is that all you needed to know?
So not Andre Ware is what you're saying.
Not Andre Ware. He threw eight touchdowns, 6 interceptions that year.
Gotcha. Jameis Winston at Florida State, he was not.
No.
Joe Burrow and LSU, he was not. That's not the deal. And then the other thing that made me realize, Catch, think about it moving forward. We just hit NFL and we just and hit some college football. Moving forward, to be perfect in the NFL, only one team's ever done it, but remember that Dolphins team was 17-0 total. Now you have to be 20-0. Think about that. 17 regular, then you get the bye. We'll assume you get the bye if you win 17-0, and then you got to win 3. In college football, whether you go to your title game or not, we've already established you have to win 16 games. So even going to the conference title game, you get 16. You get the 12 plus your 13 there, and then you got to win 3 more. That gets you to 16. So perfect college football will be 16-0. Perfect pro will be 20-0. We'll see if anybody ever gets there.
Best player on the 73 Notre Dame team was Dave Casper.
Oh, Dave, you know what? That's an old school you could have given me. I've never thought of it my whole life. Never had anybody ask me where Dave Casper went to school. He's a Notre Dame guy. How about that?
He caught 19 passes in 1973.
Hey, you know
then
what?
Caught over 500 in the NFL.
I was going to say in 1973 catch, if you're a tight end, you catch 19 footballs, that's like catching 55 today.
Yeah.
That's silly. Absolutely silly. All right, so there you go. Couple of football stats on the way out. You good? We done?
We're good. I'm done. I got
a
Liverpool match in 30 minutes. Yes, I'm good.
Oh, Liverpool match coming up. You got to have that. Also, for those of you that are fans and supporters of Orange Bloods Live, number one, we want to thank you for that. Like, subscribe, get your notifications, and stay tuned for the future of Orange Bloods Live. It just means more in 2024 in all kinds of different ways. Thanks to Blake, the super producer, for all his great work. We do have Football with Friends coming up this afternoon with Alex Dunlap. 3:30 will be your start time there, so check that out. And tonight, a What Are You Drinking Wednesday on the Outsiders. We'll talk portal stuff. We'll talk some NFL. I think the Outsiders might have convinced Jeff Ketchum to jump in once again. That's been fun. If you haven't caught Ketch on the Outsiders, that's been a good time. A little bow edge, back and forth with Ketch, Chance Mock.
That reminds me, I need to go to OnlyFans.
That's a whole nother discussion. There's a lot of good discussions on the Outsiders. Check us out at 9:00 tonight on Orange Bloods Live. Thanks to Specs again for being a great partner. That Specs chat's there for you every day, just like Specs is. Specs app on your phone, get it delivered. Go to specsonline.com for some great ideas and get stuff that way, or just go into your local Specs location. We thank them for all of their greatness. In fact, let's give them 15 seconds of Specs here, Blake. Before we get out of here, Lisa, the rabbit, they're waiting on you. You got watch parties? Come on, let's go.
No matter what you're needing, Specs same-day delivery can save the day with our Specs app or online shopping. From world-class wines to hard-to-find spirits and craft beers to gourmet foods, delicious snacks, and spectacular sweets. It's Specs. Cheers to savings.
Chad, we can't leave. We've got breaking news.
Breaking news.
According to The Advocate in New Orleans,
yes,
LSU is expected to hire Texas defensive line coach Bo Davis.
Oh, wow. Okay. LSU. Okay.
I'll tell you what, actually, I got to go do some Orange Blood stuff.
Fair enough.
But that's the breaking news.
There it is. Breaking news at the very end of the show. Looks like LSU will be able to get Bo Davis. All right, so extra reasons to keep it right here with Orange Bloods Live. Get your notifications and get over to orangebloods.com for the very latest. That's where Catch is headed right now to keep you updated on all of it. And remember, tomorrow night on a Thursday will be War Room Night. We thank you for all of your support. Again, thanks to Blake, the super producer, for kicking ass as always. Thanks to all of you. Have a great rest of your Wednesday until high noon tomorrow. We're going to try to have our last conversation of the football season with Brian Jones of CBS Sports tomorrow. Keep your fingers crossed we get one more round of cussing from Brian before we let him go for a little while. That's tomorrow. Y'all have a good today. We are House Divided.